Hey, what is up guys, you got Gypsy and we are back here today with another Borderlands 3 build video, and in this one I'm going to be showcasing my Arctic Anarchist Flak build. Now this is a build that I think will be very useful in the upcoming Maliwan Takedown DLC. In that DLC we're going to see a lot of armored enemies, and this build is, as the name suggests, a cryo focused build with extremely high DPS, so shredding through that armor is going to be no problem at all. The build can shred through shields as well pretty easily, even when we are using cryo weapons, because of the insane damage that it can put out. So yeah, I felt it would be a good time to share this build with you guys, and hopefully you do enjoy. I'm going to be breaking down the skill trees first, then we're going to move into the equipment, and then we're going to finish with some gameplay showcasing how the build functions in practice. So kicking off in the hunter tree, we do have Interplanetary Stalker. This is one of Flak's best damage skills, and as you can see here I've got 9 out of 5, so I managed to secure a class mod that provided me with 9 out of 5. In my previous Rakk video I had a class mod that gave me 8 out of 5, which still worked fantastic. So if you guys can secure one of those, it's going to be pretty close to the damage output that this build can do from Interplanetary Stalker anyway. So fantastic ability though for Flak to have. The damage stacking of this is influenced by the 40% increase to hunter skills from big game, which is huge. So that provides Interplanetary Stalker with a big buff, as well as extending its duration. Which is really nice for Flak. If you're in dense mobbing situations, this is essentially always up, and yeah, the damage it provides is massive. So here we have Leave No Trace. Not essential, but it is pretty nice. We're going to be aiming for the head a lot of the time because we are going to be freezing targets, and hitting their crit spots will be relatively easy. It's going to be easy to just hit them in the head or the back or wherever their crit spot may be, depending on the target. You've noticed here I've avoided picking up head count. It's not necessary with this build at all. We've got eager to impress investment in the stalker tree, so we'll get into that later, but head count is a waste of points here. We're going to be scoring plenty of crits, but our action skill cooldown is going to be more influenced by killing enemies from eager to impress rather than securing crits. I've invested 2 points in second intention for a little bit of reload speed. These 2 points could be spent elsewhere. Hunter's Eye I don't think is a very good skill. I don't like it that much. We're not using a bounty hunter class mod, so it's not like we're going to be gaining all these bonuses to bosses or anything like that. And Ambush Predator, we're not using aggro pool from the Red Fang class mod, so it's not really applicable here. So second intention was the best source for the points there. 5 out of 5 in Two Fang. This is really useful when firing low projectile count weapons like pistols, shotguns, launchers. It's fantastic. Assault rifles, it's not. It can be nice if you get lucky with Two Fang chains, but it's more useful for those lower fire rate weapons and lower projectile weapons like pistols and shotguns. When I say shotguns, I'm not talking about multi-pellet. I'm talking about shotguns like the Host, which shoots out one powerful ball, and shooting out 2 of those is pretty crazy. So then we have 4 out of 3 in big game. This is huge. Again, this I get an extra point in this from my class mod, but the 3 out of 3 investment is essential for any build utilizing hunter skills. 133% duration on hunter skills is crazy, with boosted 40%, which applies to any hunter skill. So in this tree alone we've got Interplanetary Stalker, second intention, and the most dangerous game, which is huge. So this one here, obviously that 25% gun damage is going to be boosted by 40% thanks to the big game, and it's never going to run out. Essentially you're always going to be facing badasses on Mayhem 3. In this new takedown, chances are we're going to be facing a lot of badasses too, so this is huge. That handling is really big for a lot of the ARs we're going to be using, and that crit damage is obviously really nice too. Lastly, we're going to put a point into Galactic Shadow. It's difficult to test this skill, but in theory it should provide some aggro relief, as you get a nice 15% boosted crit damage and the potential of enemies being less likely to attack you. Definitely worth the point here. So moving over to the Stalker tree, we've got 5 out of 5 in self-repairing systems, 5 out of 5 in furious attack. We want our pet to be somewhat bulky. This is useful when he's reviving you, or when he's just pulling the aggro from you. He's not going to be as fat as a Gamma Burst pet would be under Gamma Burst, but with this build it can survive quite a lot of hits, and that HP regen in conjunction with all my BFFs is going to be keeping him around for a long time. Furious Attack, really nice. Stacking Hunter skill, again, benefits from the big game bonuses to all Hunter skills. This is fantastic here. We've got 4 out of 5 in Eager to Impress. For every kill you get, you as Flak get, you get a second off your cooldown time. This essentially means that you're always going to be able to click Rakks. You're always going to be getting kills in dense mobbing. You're always going to be firing off Rakks, which is going to be proccing the power inside. It's going to be giving you ammo regen for your grenades, which I'm going to go into later. So we're going to essentially have infinite grenades. And yeah, it's just a really brilliant skill to proc the after action skill anointed effects on many weapons that the build uses. So then we've got lick the wounds, obviously important for any solo flak build. Tentale and run, damage reduction while moving, and health regen, as well as gun damage and fire rate while standing still. We will be freezing enemies on the battlefield, so you will have opportunities where you can stand still and just fire at their crit spots, which is going to be big. Then we've got Fast and the Furious, gun damage and movement speed, well above full health, well above half health, I should say, which is going to be really useful. It always is. Now, usually I don't invest in Rage and Recover. On my Gamma Burst build, I would definitely invest 5 out of 5 in Hidden Machine over Rage and Recover. However, we aren't using our pet to pull anywhere near as much aggro as a Red Fang class would. It's not really guaranteed that you will be able to pull aggro, and you won't be able to necessarily ensure that enemies aren't targeting you. So this could be wasted points here. So I instead opted to invest more points into Eager to Impress for shorter cooldowns, and 1 point into Rage and Recover. This is not a very good skill. Like it's not very good. It restores missing health, but what it does mean is that your pet is regenning that health. Your pet is regenning all of that 1.6% plus everything else. It does help a little bit. It's like fractional healing in arenas like the Slaughter Shaft and the Slaughter Star. So it's just investment essentially to get down to power inside, and this is the real cornerstone of the build, as it was in my last Rakk build video. We're going to get increased damage after using it every time we use our Rakks, and that's going to be 50% if we're at full health, and 25% otherwise, and that is going to boost our gun damage, our melee damage, our grenade damage, and our action skill damage, which is huge, and it's also going to affect our pets. So the synergy there is fantastic. Rakk Attack is really Flak's best way of taking advantage of after skill anointed effects on weapons, and that's something as well this build is capable of really tapping into. So now we're going to move over to the inventory here. We're going to look at the weapons that this build uses. So you see here, first up we have the Shrinking Devil's Foursome. This is a really nice weapon to use when enemies are piled together and you want to get big damage off, or you want to freeze multiple enemies at once. This particular gun is anointed, so on action skill end we're going to be having 50% cryo bonus damage. Because we're constantly using Rakks, it's essentially never not going to have this. It's always going to have this anointment active, which is huge. So we're going to be dealing 50% bonus cryo damage, and this gun itself does a lot of damage, and the splash damage radius on this gun is huge. So it's going to be easy to freeze enemies, slow them down, which is really great for crowd control. It's a really nice weapon to just whip out when there's a whole bunch of enemies close together, and they might be like tankier enemies that will take longer to mow down with an assault rifle. So you can just whip this out and really just freeze them all and do huge damage with that bonus anointed effect. Then we have the Negating Phaser. This is not anointed. However, if you are able to find an anointed one, it's just going to improve it that much more. But I wanted to showcase that you don't need anointed weapons with this build for them to work effectively. This can be interchanged with the Cryo Lucian's Call, which I have here, which is in some ways better than the Negating Phaser, but I think the Negating Phaser is a lot of fun to use. It's got an incredibly fast fire rate. It does a lot of damage, and it's just a great fun underused kind of weapon to mess around with. But it can certainly be interchanged here with the Lucian's Call, which if you can get a cryo anointment on it, that's going to just bump the damage up to insane levels. Then we have a reliable Nighthawk in here. This is a lot of fun to use, and again, its anointed effect takes advantage of the way the Rakks constantly regen the action skill cooldown. We're going to constantly be proccing the 100% weapon damage, A short time, I believe it was Moxie, a YouTuber called Moxie, really great builder, who pointed out that a short time refers to about 13 seconds in terms of the time that this anointment lasts, which is a long time. Like, that's a long time considering how often you're firing off racks. So the Nighthawk, an incredible weapon. We all know what it does, and can really be used to mow down a lot of the anointed enemies when it is in its fire elemental mode of fire. So the last weapon that we have here is the Hazardous Trevinator, and this is one of my favorites. This is a weapon that I've loved using ever since my first playthrough, but this in particular synergizes incredibly well with the build. Enemies damaged by Rakk Attack take 100% damage for a short time. You see, it is cryo and fire, so if you do happen to come across an anointed enemy and they are resisting your cryo damage, then you can switch to the fire mode and just blow through them. Just click racks and they will melt. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Then we have the stopgap. This is always my shield of choice on my flak builds. It's one of the best shields in the game. The shield break that it provides is really useful on a build like this, especially where we don't have the longevity and survivability of the Gamma Burst build that we did in my previous video. We're a bit more of a glass cannon in this build, not completely, but we've got a lot of health regen, but not as much as the Gamma Burst Red Fang build did. So having that immunity window is really big, and this shield also happens to grant me an extra charge of Rakk Attack, which is a really nice bonus for us. And then we have the Cosmic Stalker Collector class mod. The reason I'm using this is essentially for the skill bonuses. The hunt skill power increased by 25%, and the actual skill buffs that it gives, +1 in big game, +4 in Interplanetary Stalker. The bonus stats that this provides aren't that necessary. Like, they're not that great. This could be improved by getting like a Torg or like a weapon, like an AR and SMG buff to damage, or even just weapon damage buff would be preferable. You could get like health regen on it or something like that. Atlas weapon fire rate and Cov weapon fire rate are great if you're using those. I'm not really using those in this build, but they aren't. It's not necessary at all, so keep a lookout for some better modifiers there. But then we have the Icebreak Auto Idle, and this is essential in the build. Either an Icebreak Auto Idle or an Icebreaker Victory Rush are what I recommend. I like the Auto Idle for the health regen that it provides after killing enemies. We're going to be killing enemies at a really fast rate, so getting that health regen to both Flak and the pet are going to be just a really valuable way of keeping us around longer. So it also happens to have action skill cooldown rate and area of effect weapon damage, which is going to be really nice for the Devil's Force in there. So the real nice thing about the Icebreaker Relic though is the bonus damage and the cryo efficiency you see there. So we're 50% more likely to freeze targets, and we deal 35% bonus damage to those frozen targets. So it really does tie into the way the build is designed. And then lastly, we have an anointed cryo recurring hex, and this is how we're going to achieve infinite grenades with Flak. We're going to be sending out non-stop racks, and every time we do, we regen 1 grenade. So you could literally rack grenade, and never run out. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to use. Obviously, damage wise, it's nothing to write home about, but the cryo efficiency is really nice for scoring critical hits, which is going to proc Leave No Trace, adding ammo to our rounds. It's also going to help just spread cryo around the battlefield, freezing enemies, and in conjunction with Cryo Rakks, it really just does freeze everything. So it's going to be a lot of fun to use. I'll show you guys quickly show you guys my Guardian rank to give some insight into where I'm at here. And the modifiers we have. Nothing. These were the best modifiers I could roll for this in terms of just being neutral. So enemies are going to fire 2 projectiles per shot. They're going to take less from normal bullets, but we're not using any normal bullets, and they're going to be 50% more accurate. So those are modifiers. We're going to jump into some gameplay and see how it goes. Alright, so we're going to jump into some gameplay, and we're going to be doing the Slaughter style because it's the closest thing we have to what the Maliwan Takedown is going to look like. Just going to be showing you guys some gameplay of the build. You'll notice that I'm using the Brainstormer for this particular arena. There's a lot of shielded enemies, and Flak's damage buffs complement the electrical arcing kind of nature of the effect of the Brainstormer. So it does make for a pretty fantastic source of stripping shields and opening enemies up for all the cryo damage. Most of the time on like trash mobs you won't really need to worry about shock weapons, but versus the Nogs, versus the really high shield Nogs, having something like an anointed brainstormer or even just a normal brainstormer is going to just remove the shields really quickly. You could use a crossroads if you want, but yeah, I'm just opting to use the brainstormer for the crowd control aspect of it, and it is anointed, so after enemies take damage from Rakk Attack, they take 100% damage from the brainstormer. So it's a lot of fun to use, and yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Make sure you drop a like on the video if you do enjoy and you would like to see more of these in the future. I've had really great feedback from you guys for my prior builds, so make sure you go and check those out. The pet build, my eternal pet build that I uploaded previously to this, is one of the most reliable builds that I've seen for Flak, and something that I'll definitely be using for the takedown, as well as this cryo build here. So hope you guys do enjoy. Check out those videos if you haven't already, and have a fantastic day.
Time to fight! Rakks up my sleeve. Feel the bloodlust. Target Rakks. Rakks up my sleeve.